Welcome to the Impact Maker's Journey from Passion to Profits, the podcast showcasing heart-centered coaches, experts, and energy healers who are on a mission to change lives and create meaningful success doing what they love. I'm your host, Wendy Vaughan, business success coach and founder of Impact Maker Coaching. And I've got to be honest, the path from passion to profits is rarely easy, but it's always filled with growth, clarity, and surprising rewards. Now, each week I sit down with inspiring impact makers who have turned their knowledge and wisdom into thriving businesses that are making a meaningful difference for others. I will explore their personal and professional journeys, how they found their calling, and how they continue to stay aligned with their passion along the way. So if you're here to expand your vision about what's possible for yourself, you're in the right place. So join me as we discover the positive ripple effects created by today's guest. All right. Hi there, everyone. I am super excited today because I have for my guest, Jena Taylor. Now, Jena is a resilience strategist who supports high-achieving leaders who are feeling a bit burnout. And she also helps companies who are facing staggering costs of disengaged workers. So welcome, Jena. I am super excited to have you as my guest today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to discovering more about the work you're doing, as well as just learning some about the journey that you've been on as an entrepreneur. Because what I've discovered is every entrepreneur's journey is unique. Right? We all have different paths that we're taking in life that maybe prompt us to jump in this wild and crazy world of entrepreneurism. And typically along the journey of building a business, there's also lots of what I call quote unquote opportunities for personal growth. Do you agree?
Absolutely. My story is filled with these opportunities for personal growth. And that is kind of what defines my journey. Yeah. So I started my company back in 2021, and it's called The
Okay.
Word Taylor. It's a play on my last name. And I am a writer and a communicator by trade. And when I went out to create, well, I moved from the downtown Denver to the mountains in Colorado, and I plummeted. I left my downtown job. I loved the hustle and the bustle. I liked the energy of the people downtown. I was on the 16th Street Mall. And then all of a sudden, you pluck me out. I'm not working. I'm not going downtown. I never wanted to be at home. And then I find myself and our roles were reversed. And I bottomed out very quickly. We discovered it quickly. My ex-husband said, "You need to start your own company." So I did. And
Mm-hmm.
so fast forward many years that, I've divorced, we've divorced and I've relocated again, but every part of our journey doesn't lead us. Our path is not linear, right? And so
No,
we go
it's
here
not.
and we
And
do
it's
this and we go
generally bumpy too. It's like,
very, very bumpy. And in 2017, I had a really big bump in my head. Like I hit my head,
oh,
and it took me a full year to recover. I couldn't walk, I couldn't
oh my,
talk. I had zero short-term memory. As I was saying
oof,
earlier before we started filming, I had word finding problems. I couldn't find the word, and I thought, how in the hell am I going to be able to work in my business as a writer and a marketer to be able to talk and tell people stories if I can't come up with the words? So it was very
right.
scary, very frightening.
Devastating.
And
Yes.
I decided at that point in time, I was very much into mantras, and I came up with Reclaim My Life. And
Mm.
today, we're at 2026. It is at the heart of everything that I do. I reclaim my life. And then I transitioned because I had burnout. I transitioned from being a leader in marketing and a marketing strategist to a resilience strategist because I've had to use so much resilience in the course of my lifetime.
Yeah, a
So I'm
year. You said you were down dealing with this your health for an entire year. My goodness.
Yes. And then, of course, because I dedicated a full year, I was living alone, owned my own company, I had zero family support. My friends stepped up and helped me. I lived with different people, and I left my own, like, I got out of my own apartment and was living with other people. All my stuff was in storage. And then I had anticipated going to London, but I had some lingering health issues that prevented me from living alone in London and making that big move. So
Yeah,
I
that's
stayed in
huge.
Colorado. Yep. Stayed in Colorado. I think in October, I moved into my own place again, and I had a little financial assistance because I had depleted my money. So here I am still in this 1 year recovery of physical recovery
Yeah.
and getting my neural pathways to reconnect. By then I could walk, I could talk. My short-term memory was improving. My word finding was getting better. And I started working and writing copy for IBM Watson Health. And
Wow.
I was so afraid that they were going to figure out that I was not up to snuff. But they loved everything I was doing and they kept giving me more work. And that was a huge confidence boost for me.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, yes. And I was
Wow.
earning money. So I was digging myself out of the financial hole because being resilient is you have to be resilient in multiple aspects and facets of your life.
Right.
So fast forward a few more years, and I have a traumatic loss in my life. And my longtime, well, my service animal died when I went under for anesthesia for a hip surgery. And I came to and I found out, and I was just gutted.
Oh
And
my
then
goodness.
I was just focusing on rehabbing, and I had to, I was going to be walking out of the hospital with a walker and then graduate to crutches and a full year to recover from this hip surgery that I had. And so I had kept my eye on the prize, my eye on the prize. The prize was I got to get a new dog. And I couldn't do it if I wasn't healthy. So I just stayed focused on that. And 10 weeks later, my longtime partner died
Oh
suddenly and
my goodness.
tragically to an
Oh,
alcohol withdrawal fueled suicide. So that
shoot.
gutted me. That took me to my knees, and that was the darkest I've ever had in my life. And so once again, I had to pick myself up and pull myself out of the depths of despair. I'd lost my dog, and I lost my longtime partner, and
Right.
he,
And dealing with all the health issues for
and
yourself, lack of that as well. My
and
goodness.
then and then it gets worse. The home that we had shared flooded not once but twice. The night before I was supposed to move back into it, it flooded again. The maintenance crew called me and I'm like, this can't be good. And so I move out like instantaneously. And so all of this happened in like a matter of 12
Lord.
weeks. Losing my
Oh my
service
goodness.
animal, my hip surgery, losing Michael, and then losing the home that we shared and being displaced once again. So I live what I talk about. And so I completely shifted and I went into resilience training. I'm a resilience strategist and I help other people learn what I've learned with neuroscience, with my brain injury, and with overcoming adversity and burnout. These are the three areas that I know very well
Yeah.
and I've had to overcome in my own life.
My goodness. That talk about true grit. I mean, and
Yeah.
the ability to just bounce, not once, not twice, but it's like 4 or 5 times just in this series. So my goodness, this is such an
Yeah, it's
inspiration
well in
to,
life. Thank you. Life is hard. And I think we need to have a space where people can admit that life is hard. Social media makes it look like life is easy and life is grand. But I
mhm.
think we need a safe place where people can go and say, you know what? Life's hard. Life sucks. This is what I'm facing right now.
Yeah.
We need that. We need more of that in our world.
Yes, absolutely. Because the social media does have those little snapshots of glorious moments, right? None
Mhm.
of the snapshots of the mundane or even worse. And so it does provide a skewed reality, especially for the youth. They're growing up
Yes.
with thinking this kind of unrealistic ideal of what life really is. And it's
It's
it's so inspirational to hear the stance you're taking for others, right? And taking the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience that you've gained through this massively challenging journey that you've been on, and now sharing it with others so that they can bounce easier, faster.
Yeah,
So,
and I thought about when I had my traumatic brain injury, what was I going to do? Because if I came out, because I'm a very outspoken person, And if I came out and spoke publicly, that nagging fear in the back of your head, are people not going to want to do business with me because there was still not so much today because there's so much more awareness with brain injuries, but then there was still a big stigma. And I put my neck out on the line because to be congruent is important to me. And
Mhm.
I was like, if people don't want to do business with me because they think that I'm not good enough because I'm a brain injury survivor, then
Mhm.
that's okay. I don't want to do business with them. I will
Mhm.
find my work. And I did. And people were like, it didn't phase them because I was producing. It wasn't
Right.
my limitations weren't affecting the quality of my work. How
Right.
it surfaced was my bandwidth was reduced. And so
Mhm.
I had to cut out so many other things. And I think that's again, things that people don't see. But I did make that decision to go public. And March is Brain Injury Awareness Month.
Oh,
So
well,
it's a special time
yes. Yeah.
for me.
That
And
is, and it is risky to be transparent with our vulnerabilities. But every time I've heard of other people just like, okay, well, it's not really serving people to not be authentic. Every time it does create some polarization, but typically the benefits are bringing just more clients and more sense of, oh my gosh, I so love what you stand for, and I so admire you, you know. So working through those
yes,
fears.
and it's important because I've used everything that I teach.
Right,
And if I went through life and pretended something didn't happen, then I'm doing a disservice to other people.
right.
And if we, it's, it's that whole, we have to talk our walk our talk,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have
Absolutely.
to be congruent with what we say and what we preach. And if we don't, then we're fraud. And I want people to know the real me and I want people to connect with me because they're like, oh, she knows grief. Oh, she knows a brain injury. Oh, she knows burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
it's
she gets me. She understands me. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally powerful. So going from corporate into starting your own business, that's a big leap right there. In 2020 hindsight, which is always our best, clearest vision, is there anything that you feel you would have done differently to build your own business faster?
Oh, that's a great question. I am going to give my best divorced husband kudos because he's the one who's just like, you've got to start your own business. And I'm like, what? Me? No. And so yeah, I'm giving Paul, thank you, BDH, for best divorced husband, for giving me that big nudge, not the nudge, the shove, you got to do this. Otherwise, our
Mhm.
family's going to be torn apart because
Mhm.
he was there and I was going to go, maybe go back down to the city.
Right.
And it was perfect. And I had business right there. This was 2001 and I started doing business. This is when you could do pay per click so cheap. I had clients all over the globe and I was spending $50 a month on pay per click advertising. And I
Wow.
was doing email copywriting for the first autoresponders, back in the day when everybody just thought, oh, they emailed me. Isn't that great?
I have an email. Wow. That you got mail.
Right. And so I think that we have this trajectory and every step we take is the stepping stone to the next step in our path. And I'm grateful for everything because even that brain injury made me a better version of myself. It made me more humbling, more able to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I work with. These are my limitations that I live with, and this is how I reframe them. And that all helps build the business because you have clarity. And if you
Mhm.
don't have clarity as a business owner, you're going to serve too many people and dilute your
Yeah.
message and you're not going to be successful and you're not going to connect with people.
Right. And that's a common thing that happens for a lot of new entrepreneurs, mainly in the service-based space, because, they're giving their time, their knowledge, their wisdom, and there's so many different ways of doing that. And so You can easily get into overwhelm, which, speaking of overwhelm, and I know that your specialty is working with those high achieving leaders who are dealing with a lot of responsibilities and pulled in a lot of different directions. And they're high achieving, so they have ideals set for themselves. So curiously, what are some of the false beliefs that these high achieving leaders have that keeps them stuck in this heading for burnout mode?
That's a great question. Pushing, 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 pushing. They push
Mm-hmm.
through. They think that push through, that I can keep going, I can keep going, I can keep going at this rate. They
Mm.
think that there's never going to be a crash. But if we don't tend and nurture ourselves, which is like our own garden, then the weeds are going to grow, and the weeds are going to get thicker, and they're going to get taller, and then we're not going to be able to see through the weeds. And all of a sudden, the world's going on around us, and we're stuck in this maze of weeds. And I think that's a great analogy that I just came up with on the top of my
It
head,
is great. Yeah.
because we have to stop. One of like there's our plate. We have to talk about, this is my load. What's your load? Ask, like in a corporate environment, ask your team, ask your people downline, or what's your load? How heavy
Mm-hmm.
is what's on your plate? Because if
Mm-hmm.
we don't recognize it, so burnout is like the silent thing that's going on right now. You don't recognize, there are things you can see, the
Mm-hmm.
silent signs, but until someone cracks,
Yeah.
then it's wide open. So I teach companies the symptoms or the signs to look for and the tools you can use, just like I said. What's your workload? What's on your plate? How heavy is your load? These are expressions we can use with each other in the corporate world to monitor and to make sure, you know what? How about this? This is a new priority. This needs, okay, these are my other five priorities. You tell me which one, and I'll drop that down lower. You get a pick because you're my manager. What is your priority? I'll make that my priority. But you can't get five of these plus this new one at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. We have to bend. Otherwise, if we don't bend, we're going to break. And if
Yeah.
we have managers who won't acknowledge that there's can
Yeah.
be too much on a plate, the bucket overfills.
Yeah.
And
And that's a
that's when,
complete paradigm shift to be able to say that in a way that doesn't lead them to, fearing for the security of their job. Right.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is, for those high achieving professionals and leaders, that the kind of the wake up call that has them saying enough is enough, I need to fix this, is maybe a more glaring uh thing
Recognize,
besides just feeling exhausted or feeling it's like, oh well, let me just caffeinate more, and just
yeah,
push push push. So what
that,
what are
that,
some of those things that happen?
yeah, that push through mentality just doesn't work. And so if you feel like you're pushing, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I've done this, I can do this. If you are telling yourself that, that's a red flag right there. Um,
Mm,
if you don't have balance in your life, that's a red flag. If your whole work, your life is consumed by work, that's a red flag. We
mhm.
have to, I'm a big believer in the Stephen Covey system where you sharpen the saw. If
Right.
we don't sharpen our saw, which takes care of us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, if we don't take care of ourselves in those areas, we deplete ourselves. And something like going for a walk, exercise is so important. If we want to perform at the high levels and be the high achievers that we are, because I'm a high achiever, I'm talking from my own experience here.
Mhm.
We have to take care of ourselves. I'm a much more productive person if I'm out playing on the tennis court, playing and smashing the ball, taking
And
my
that's
aggression out,
that's
right?
that's tough for a lot of people that have kind of been steeped in an environment where they think that their success is all about working hard, and that
Performing.
taking time out is almost feels like guilty, you know,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's a false belief right there. Just
That
like
is a
you're
false
saying,
belief.
believing in and valuing the importance of keeping the weeds
You
pulled
have
from the
to,
garden.
exactly. And in the corporate world, we as corporate America do a disservice to our teams and our culture when we expect them, the workers, to perform at these non-sustainable levels for far too long. And then we have the problem of not being able to like give people the time that they need. These
Yeah.
flexible schedules, the companies that offer flexible schedules, they've got it. They understand because you keep your people happy, they're going to perform well, your profits are going to be better, your costs are going to be lower, your customers are going to be happier.
It's
It's a
just,
win. The
it's
ripple
obvious,
effect.
right?
Yes, the
But
ripple
employers
effect.
fear, oh, my employees won't be productive. They'll be skating, and those kinds of things. So that's the short term or short sighted perspective, right?
Very,
The,
yeah.
the bigger, more holistic and well being driven perspective is that, hey, happy employees, they do more work. They're happier with the clients and on and on and on. So, and they're easier to work with, and the retention rate increases, and on and on. So curiously, what I think you maybe mentioned this, but what was the turning point where you realize that resilience isn't about pushing more, but it's about resetting? And, how can our listeners apply that and
Yeah.
begin to reset today?
Yeah, well, for me, it was hitting my head,
Mhm.
and having the what I call the big brain injury because I'm multiple brain injury survivor, but the one in 2017 where it took me a full year to get everything kind of back on track. So that was my
So that
turning
was the
point.
main thing
That
versus just
was, and that's when
the
I realized that I used resilience to come through that. When I was going through it, I didn't know I was just focused. When you're in it, you've got your vision's myopic. But when you're out of the weeds and you can then look at yourself and your situation, be like, oh, now I see that clearly I used resilience in here and here and here and here. So I think that, well, what I teach people is you can start today. So I have a 5R framework. And the first step is recognize. If you recognize or hear anything that resonates that we're talking about, if you hear yourself saying, I can do this, I can do this. Oh yeah, no, I got that. I'll do that. Yep, I can turn it in tomorrow. If you
Mhm.
hear yourself use this language, or if you're on the other side of it, you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get this done. They expect too much from me. Those are
Freak
other
out.
signs, right?
Yeah.
Or if you just shut down, if you're sitting at your desk and you can't produce and you're all of a sudden you're grabbing your phone and now you're on a social media rabbit hole because you can't focus here, or there, and now you're escaping, that's also a sign. So, but the beauty of my program and what I teach people is you start where you are, wherever you are right now. You don't have to prepare for it. You get to start right here, right where you are.
I love that. Yeah, baby steps
Hmm.
instead of, oh, this is going to be big.
Right. Yes. Because when we're overwhelmed and our system is overloaded and our adrenals are under attack, people are like, I want to get better. I want to feel better, but I can't handle one more thing.
Yeah, I'm
And
maxed.
that's why I make my program easy. And that's why it's so important and
Mhm.
effective to start right where you are. You don't have
So
to.
that framework you said had five
Five
R's.
R's. Yep.
Okay.
Recognize,
Okay.
reframe, reset, rebuild. And when you have all of those in place, you rise.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And yet there's like, okay, how do I do all that? So obviously you have distilled it down to those easy step by step ways to actually make that a part of your daily existence. So I love that. Now, in terms of, can you share with us just a story, if you would, of a client that you worked with and kind of what they were experiencing before working with you and what they're able to do now?
Absolutely. Yes, I have a private coaching client that comes to mind. And she, a year ago, was confiding in me some things about how she was feeling and very depressed and angry. Well, the summer went, they went away and they came back because I live in a retirement community but I'm a year rounder. So a lot of snowbirds come and go. And she returned and she was worse. She was more isolated, more depressed, angrier, and her marriage was in trouble. She was so beside herself and sad.
Mm,
Sad, sad, sad. And I told her about my program and she said, I'd like to do it. So we started her on the 7-day program and I worked with her step by step through the 7-day program. And within, I would say, day 4, 5, and 6 are the heavy lifting days. The end of day 4, she was like, oh my gosh, wow. End of day 5, she was like, peeling the layers and crying and being able to answer the question, and each question leads to another question. We have to do self-discovery. If we don't
mhm.
take our body, like we take our car in to the shop for different milestones, right?
Right.
Mile marker or milestones, right? Or whatever, those
Yeah,
100,000
yeah,
miles. Yeah.
exactly.
Same thing with us. When we go through a transition in life, we need to put ourselves in the shop. We need to do a tune up. And that's what this program does. It kind of recalibrates you so you aren't living on autopilot. You're actually going through a series of questions that one opens up you to receive the next question, which opens you to receive the next question. So you can safely peel the layers of yourself back to reveal what is really bothering you, why it's bothering you, and what you want different. And then it allows you to create that new version of yourself that you want to be so that you can move from this place of discontent, this unhappiness, and get you over to your desired outcome. And my process shortens that period.
Wow. Yeah, and it makes such perfect sense because, like your description of the car and the vehicle maintenance, well, as humans, we're constantly in different chapters of our lives too.
Hmm.
And so not only are we putting miles on, but we're in different, like, values change and environments change. Obviously,
Yeah.
politics, everything outside our world changes, and it's so easy to just be kind of numb and going through the actions and then feeling this sense of emptiness and then look back, my gosh, where did the last decade go? And being kind
Hmm.
of disengaged. Whereas what you're saying is like, no, it's important to do a regular kind of check-in and peel back the layers and see where the value system is now and find out what's missing and how to shore that up. It's like, duh. It's kind of
Yeah. And I think we
logical.
live on autopilot for so long and going back to my client today. So I've been working with her for over 2 months now. She's completed the 6-week program. Now she's on a monthly maintenance program because I do a resilience snapshot and I check to see where people are. And she still had some areas that weren't high enough that we wanted to continue to get her up a little bit higher. And she had some specific things in her life that we wanted to address. So we're still working together. But today, she is stronger. She's happier. She's not angry. She doesn't have the resentment. She's not crying every day like she was.
Wow.
She's going out and putting herself out there and joining the world and joining activities, engaging with other people because our social support is so important. And if we isolate, and she was choosing to self isolate, and then she was being angry about being home alone, and then angry with her husband because he was out having fun doing activities. So
Right.
you see things a little bit differently when you take yourself out of your problem. And
Yeah.
we moved
Two,
her out
just two
of,
months. Just two
yeah,
months. That big of a transformation. That's huge.
Yeah.
That is
And so
really huge.
they're happier in their marriage. She's happier. She's living a much more fulfilling life. And so it doesn't take a lot of work once you start to recognize that you need to do something like this. I'm not happy with this. And sometimes people don't like I'm not a car mechanic. I know when I got to take my car in and have them open the hood and take the parts out, right? They that's their area of expertise. We as people, we don't necessarily know how we're going to fix ourselves. We know
Yeah.
that we want to fix ourselves and we have the answers within us. We need a guide to help us
Mhm.
and direct
Right.
us.
Just ask those specific questions that most people wouldn't even know to kind of start that process. So, and I love how you're just obviously so very passionate about doing this work. It truly is a sign that this is something that, like you said, you've been along a path and a journey that you had no intention of going down. You pivoted your career, but I can just sense this passion that you have for
Yeah.
making that profound difference, helping others in that way. So, um,
When you
and
do things from your soul,
yeah,
it feels great.
yeah,
And
exactly.
you're living, you're not working, right?
Right.
It is you're performing work, but when you are aligned with your soul and you're doing what your soul wants you to do, life is easier, life is better
Hmm.
things happen to you and you are happier. And that, again, I love that ripple effect. The ripple effect goes out.
That's just what I was going to say. Yeah, I
What you
believe.
reap, you sow.
Hmm.
And
A
or was it
huge
what you
ripple
sow, you
effect.
reap? Yeah. So,
Yeah, it's infinite.
mhm.
Because people just like that woman you described, the client, that you've just recently been supporting, the ripple effects of her happiness every time she goes someplace or interacts with others, it's just that kind of positivity, and her actions of being out there in the world are just, create that ripple effect. One of my mentors early in my career as an entrepreneur was Mark Victor Hansen,
Mhm.
the co-author for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Now, he wasn't my direct mentor. I'll just make that clear. But I was in a mastermind with he and Bob Proctor called the 3% Club, and it was held in Colorado, Colorado Springs, the
Broadmoor.
Broadmoor. And so once a quarter, we had the opportunity to go meet with Mark and Bob and a handful of other entrepreneurs and talk about a visionary, talk about passion,
How
talk about
wonderful.
exuberance, and just that essence of, let's make the world a better place,
Hmm.
the ripple effects. And so one of the things that I learned from him, amongst many, 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 of course, but one of the big things that I carry with me pretty much every step of my journey as an entrepreneur was his concept of always having a what he calls a big, hairy, audacious goal as a way, as a means to fuel that passion, right? Always have that sense of a bigger tapestry that you're part of, the ripple effects. And so I've loved that kind of mindset, and just taking the time to connect with what that is. And for the past 8 years as a business coach, um, I've had the same audacious goal, which is to raise consciousness within humanity. And the way that I'm realizing that is by giving voice and opportunity, and supporting those like you who are in the trenches, helping people to step into a happier, healthier version of their lives. And that is, bringing that awareness to people that, hey, I don't have to live with burnout. I can be happy and productive. I don't have to compromise.
Right.
Or, the leaders in a corporation say, you know what? We can give our employees liberty and freedom, and they'll be more productive. So all those little shifts that you are spearheading are truly raising consciousness within humanity. So that's what fuels my passion. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Jena.
Yes.
Do you have any big audacious goals for yourself or your business?
Yes, I do. And every year I do a year in review, and that means I take a look at what did I do last year? What do I not want to repeat?
Yeah.
What are my goals? And then I list them out and then I break them up. What are my top goals, like from 3 to 5 years out? Then I parse it down. What are my top goals for the 2026, or all my goals for 2026? And then what are my top five goals? And then as I was doing that this January, right at the end of the year, beginning of the year, I had something come through with Gretchen Rubin. You know, she's the Happier Project.
Okay.
And she came up with, and this is the sheet I showed you, my 26 for 2026. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll do that. Now I have 16 goals. I haven't completed my 26, but
Okay.
that just means I haven't looked at my goal sheet. That I have a huge long list of goals. So, but I do have more than 26 goals. I just haven't completed my sheet. But today I am telling you and everyone in the audience, I started a book called Reclaim My Life to chronicle what I went through that year when I hit my head and my
Mm,
world completely stopped. And I
mm,
was afraid that I would never be able to function. And I was afraid I wouldn't be able to live alone. I was afraid I would never be able to drive a car. All of these things because this happened to me. And so I started writing the book. But then, as everyone in this audience knows, life happens, and I've already talked about the things that I've gone through that have put these roadblocks in my way of completing the book. And so this year I will complete the book and I will get the book out and publish the book, and so that is my big
that is
audacious goal.
awesome. Yes. And hearing and understanding what somebody has gone through is totally inspiration for another, that is relating to that and feels like they're at that moment of, I just don't know if I can keep going.
Mhm.
And your book is going to pop somehow into their world, some sort of feed, or somebody sends an email, or hey, I thought of you, and gifts it, and literally it will change their life. So
That
I
is
just
my
love that.
goal.
Yeah,
That
I
is
love
my
that.
goal because when I had my injury and I had so much pain. I couldn't light. I like to today, like having this light shine on me is amazing that I can do this. And every time I go outside, I always have sunglasses and a visor. When I go into a restaurant, I wear a visor. So I'm very light sensitive. So I have to position these lights just so that I don't have problems. But I had this major life event that defined me. My life is before that and after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is truly an inspiration. We're so grateful that you navigated through that,
Thank you.
because I'm
Me
sure
too.
there were very dark moments. So, and I believe you have a gift for our audience. Is that correct?
I have,
Would you like to tell us about that?
yes, I have several gifts. The first one, if you go to my website, resiliencebrilliance.co, you can sign up for the free resilience skills cheat sheet. And so
Okay.
that's at the bottom of every page on the website. I also offer a free training once a month. And
Oh,
there is a button on the website where you can click that to sign up for the free training. And my podcast. I have a
ah,
podcast called Resilience Brilliance. It's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
I
So
love
just look
that.
for it under Resilience Brilliance.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you are just a wealth of gifts. And I love
I
your
believe in
domain name.
sharing. Thank you.
Resilience Brilliance. That is awesome. And that 10 skills, the resilience skills cheat sheet, who is that specifically for?
It's for anyone, if you're feeling burned out, overwhelmed, if you're grieving, if you are stuck
Okay.
and if you're unhappy with your life in any way, shape, or form, if you're stressed out, if you're exhausted, then hop on over and download it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's easy. Again, like I said, it starts where you are right here, right now, today. You don't have to prepare for it. They are just reminders of it's It's not rocket science. It's neuroscience and it's common, but we don't give it the emphasis that it needs. And so these 10 skills will help you
Great.
incorporate them and you'll be like, ah, yeah, she was
Yeah, it
right.
sounds like
It's not
like
hard.
guardrails. Yeah, it's like a guardrail, or
Right.
like all right, there's all this chaos and messiness. Well, just follow this cheat sheet, and we'll get you through it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Well,
Life
thank
is
you so
hard
much.
enough. Everything I provide is easy.
I love that. That's a good mantra as well. Jena makes it easy. Shift can be easy
Yeah.
with Jena. So, well, I so appreciate your time today and sharing your journey. Very inspirational. I so appreciate your tenacity and the true grit that you've demonstrated throughout
Thank you.
your journey, and just sharing your gifts, sharing your wisdom and knowledge with others so that they truly can step into a new level of joy, happiness, and success for themselves. So thank you so much, Jena.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Well, the real life transformations facilitated by experts like my guest today are truly priceless. I mean, happiness, joy, peace, love, right? These are all what each of us ultimately strives for in life. But becoming a sought after and well paid coach or energy healer is often challenging, overwhelming, and frustrating. So, if you're a heart centered coach, expert, or energy healer who's striving for more ease, flow, and abundance, well, I've created a special gift just for you. So, check out the show notes. All right. Well, this is Wendy Vaughan signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to join me for my next episode where we'll be inspired by yet another impact maker's journey.